You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. This episode's guest is Lance Hoyt. Visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer. And now here's your host, Mark Madison.
Football, baseball, and basketball were all sports it had been reported that you were involved in earlier on in high school. Were any of those ever an option for you professionally, maybe moving forward?
Professionally, who knows, man? I really enjoyed football. That was kind of my focus in high school and going into college. I started playing at Howard Payne University first couple years, and then I transferred to Texas State with the full intention of trying on their program. Ultimately, that didn't work out, which is what kind of led me into professional wrestling. I was a pretty decent pitcher in high school and actually wish I'd really stuck with that. I think if I'd have gotten some real good coaching through college and whatnot, I think that might have been a possibility, an option. And being the money that some of these pitchers make these days, if I could have been even halfway decent, that would have been really nice.
Being from Toronto, like the big thing now was David Price signing with Boston, and he signed for $200 and something million. It's pretty insane what is out there.
Yeah. All those different guys that are making, especially the pitchers. They're in and out so quick because once they get any kind of injury, they usually lose any ability as far as pitching is concerned. A lot of these other guys. We had was it A-Rod that was in Texas and then went to New York and had the insane contract here in Texas, and then got another insane contract in New York and was getting paid insane money from both organizations at the same time.
Discuss, if you could, maybe some of your earlier training under Solo. How did that initially all come about?
Yeah, when I first started training, Solo Fatala was the main trainer at the school that I was at, the Southwest Wrestling Federation. His training was very, very straightforward, very basic. He was very, strong-headed, very, very tough. It wasn't very much, I make it sound bad, but it was what the kind of training I needed. He didn't let me get away with things. He made me work hard. He made me push through. The different drills that we would do, he would make them very tough and very hard, and I would have to make sure that each and everything was done correctly in effort to move forward into something new and something different. So he was very thorough when it came to good training. But the training only went so far because it was just me and one other guy that was training together with Solo when Solo could be there. And then a lot of times my friend Jason and I would just basically go over the same things we'd been taught, together. And so I really never got an understanding of true psychology to professional wrestling until I started traveling on the road and was working with a lot of the guys that were going to Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy. Mm-hmm. And when they started talking to me about the psychology of the business and understanding of what I was doing and when I would do it, why I would do it, and how I would do it, really started to come from that time when I was on the road. So all my basics were very solid and drilled into me very well by Solo, but I really didn't get a full understanding of psychology of the business until I got on the road.
Now, I'd read something, and maybe you can validate it or not, a faction called the Dark Circle?
Yep.
Maybe where did the inspiration for that particular group come from, and could you ever see that particular idea, what you had working there, working today?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think throughout the different times in professional wrestling, you've had different dark characters and dark gimmicks. You look at the Wyatt family now and kind of what they're doing and what Taker and, the different groups that he had throughout the different times, the Brood and those guys. So that's kind of the direction that the Dark Circle was. My character was Shadow. He was kind of a dark character himself. It was kind of a play on like an Undertaker and a Jeff Hardy-esque kind of character. I don't know how else to explain it. Kind of had a mix of those two guys at that time because this was 2001 and 2 and 3 before I really started getting into my TNA time. Mm-hmm. And the Dark Circle was a gimmick that I pitched to the bookers of PCW in Dallas at the time. I just said, what about this group? I'd like to add a few guys kind of all in the same realm with the darker characters and call it the Dark Circle. And they loved it. And, we had the luxury in Dallas at PCW of TV. We had video monitors and video screens in the arena. So we got to film a lot of, the cool vignettes and stuff in different dark corridors we were able to do that along with all the other cool elements that kind of help set up, different groups and different factions and different characters and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. And I absolutely think, if it was a case of being able to take that and take it into Japan or wherever I'm at now, it would absolutely work. I think it just needs the right production and the right deliverance and stuff like that from both myself and the other guys in the group that could possibly be in it and how it was delivered to the crowd.
Amazing. Now, TNA wasn't as... We had access to it here, and then it was on Spike TV, and then it was kind of on a really obscure channel here, so really access to it kind of got lost. But I will say, one of the more fun teams when I was able to watch earlier on was the Rock and Rave Infection. I think what you guys did was hilarious. It was fun. And it's wrestling not taking itself seriously sometimes, which is good.
Right.
Where did the idea for that particular montage or group and collection of talent off kind of come out align for you?
The crazy part about that was, that was in my latter part of being at TNA. I was at TNA for 5 years, carried 3 different names from Dallas when I started to carrying my own name, Lance Hoyt, to when I became Lance Rock with the Rock and Rave Infection. Actually, I was Lance Hoyt in the Rock and Rave Infection when it first started because they brought Jimmy Rave in, and they told me that they were going to have Jimmy and I teaming as a team, and I had an angle going with Christy Hemme prior to that with the Voodoo Kid Mafia and stuff like that.
Right.
So we were all going to still be together, and we actually were together kind of at a very early stage of the Rock and Rave Infection, which we had the name, but we still hadn't even developed the full characters and the image that ultimately everybody came to know with the Rock and Rave Infection. And that really came about because we came to TV one week, and we hadn't really done a whole lot. We made a few appearances and had a couple matches where we weren't a focus in any sense. And then we showed up to TV one week, and Disco Inferno Glenn Gilberti comes up to us and he's like, "Hey, you guys hear y'all's new gimmick?" And we're all like, "No, what do you mean our new gimmick?" And he goes, "Okay." He goes, the video game Rock Band or Guitar Hero?" And I said, we're all like, "Yeah, we've heard about it." And he goes, "Okay, so you guys all think you're rock stars, but you only play the video game." And, at the time, it was one of those, everybody kind of shakes their head, puts their head down, and it's almost like, "Oh, man, you guys you're trying to kill our careers." But then we asked, what are we doing, and can we make this at our own? And they were like, "Absolutely, we really would like you to make it your own. Have fun with it." You were going to be on all 3 TV tapings we had for those few days that we were there. We had backstage vignettes. We had live mic time when we went out to the ring. So, again, we hadn't really been doing anything prior. And then they said, "Yes, creative freedom. Go with it. Have fun with it. Do what you think would be good for rock stars to be," and so we all kind of decided to develop our own images. And actually, when we first debuted with the guitars and stuff like that, again, it was another bland version of the Rock and Rave Infection because when we showed up, we had no idea we were going to be doing it. It wasn't like we got foreknowledge and showed up with new gimmicks and new gear and stuff of that nature. We just showed up. They told us about it. We got the lowdown as to what we were going to be doing. They gave us kind of that freedom. Yes, please have fun with it. Go with it. Make it something cool. And then by the time we came back, and I believe was the pay-per-view, one of the pay-per-views that we did in Atlanta, I think was when we first showed up, me with the slash-ass cat and the tattered jeans and the barely tied boots and, stuff of that nature. And then Jimmy went kind of glam rock, with the shiny tights and pants and then the mesh shirt. And, Christy, who was just, she's just rock star hot. And, she can actually sing really well, doing her best to sing really bad, so that the character and the gimmick kind of got over and people got into it. Jimmy always saying the wrong city, and then me asking for a ham sandwich and a bottle of whiskey, things like that. Just we had a lot of fun with it, and that's ultimately what it became. And all of us believed that every time, we had something strong and something fun, and we were all good wrestlers, and we had a good element, and we believed that, if they'd have done more with us and with the group, we could have easily been that group that the babyface team were chasing on a constant basis, and, just being dastardly and heelish and doing silly rock star stuff to keep our titles and whatnot, and ultimately being in that role. But, they never really gave us that ball. We had a lot of fun. We had some amazing matches. I think one of our best matches was a really good match, and people really got into it. And when we finished the match and we got to the back, a lot of the producers and agents and stuff were like, man, now that's how you start a pay-per-view. So, it was one of those proud moments, I think, for all of us that we're in that tag division, and either they were doing something with or they weren't doing something with, but, we all kind of been involved together in the Rock and Rave Infection. We all believe it could have been done a lot more with. So, it was a lot of fun. I don't regret any of it. Some people are like, oh, man, it was just kind of a silly thing. Did you regret it? I'm like, no, not at all. We had a lot of fun. It was probably some of the most fun I've had wrestling just because we were such goofballs with it.
Oh, and it showed. It showed that you guys were having fun with it, too. And you didn't take it seriously, though, too. So I get where there can be that fear, oh, no, it's going to ruin my career, or it could. But you guys totally parlayed that into something because it was special. And definitely congratulate you guys on just having fun with wrestling. I think sometimes it gets lost. Kind of switching gears, moving a little bit forward. FCW, not around now, but it became a breeding ground for a number of talented wrestlers like yourself as you transitioned, I guess, from to Florida Championship Wrestling, which is now NXT. Maybe you can share some of your time there and some of the ECW opportunities that kind of came your way.
For me, FCW, I think, was a great place to go because, unfortunately, there had been some other talents from TNA that had come into WWE and really had left kind of a sour note with the company. I was given an opportunity to come into the company. I think it would have been extremely difficult for me to go directly off of TNA TV onto WWE TV just for the simple fact that they're very different elements, especially at that time. So it was a good learning situation, a good learning place to be. They had so many good coaches from, obviously, the late, great Dusty Rhodes, who was probably a big provider in me getting my job with WWE. You had Dr. Tom Pritchard, you had Norman Smiley, you had Billy Kidman, you had Steve Kern. You had this wealth of knowledge in many different ways that were there on a constant basis to help you to learn and to train and to get better and to transition into what WWE was about, kind of what they wanted from each of their talents, from both in-ring work to microphone work, live mic work to backstage promo work, everything that was kind of there, and it was kind of an early stage of what NXT is now. I mean, what they have and the Performance Center in Orlando now completely blows out the water anything we had at FCW, but it was the initial beginning stages of what NXT is now. So for me, it was invaluable for the simple fact that it gave me an opportunity to transition, to kind of get my feet wet, to kind of let them know that I'm there to work and I have no ego and I'm just ready to earn my place and things of that nature. And I was lucky enough that, I was only really in full-time FCW for about 6 months when I got my first opportunity on ECW with their ECW product. And that itself was kind of a crazy transition because, I got a phone call on a Saturday and was told, you're needed for TV on Tuesday. And, got all my flight plans and, I had no clue what was going on. I didn't, they send guys up on the road all the time just to be evaluated and looked at and talked to and things like that, to kind of think about things for the future. I showed up and I didn't get an inclination that I was actually going to be on TV that night until I think I was in the gym the morning of, and one of the guys came up to me, and I believe it was Joey Styles, and he was like, "Hey man, congratulations! We'll get all your information for the bio and stuff later." And I just went, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm doing something tonight." And I still had no clue what I was actually going to be doing, from filming something backstage to wrestling in front of everyone to making a run. I had no clue. Nobody had clued me into anything. And my first day, we were there, and I introduced myself to the main roster, and CM Punk, who was there, he asked me to get up on the table because it's just kind of a normal thing, and tell a joke in front of everybody, which I told a really horrible joke, which made no one laugh, but I think that in itself was kind of funny for me to get up there and purposely bomb so badly. And then about 5 minutes before doors open, I was standing in the ring, and it was just me and then Johnny Ace and Vince McMahon standing outside the ring, and Johnny finally, again, nobody else is in the arena, everybody else is in the back. They're about to open the doors. All the security people are lined up, ready to go to direct everyone to their seats. And Vince and Johnny are talking, and all of a sudden Johnny's like, "Kid, come here." Like, "What's up?" "Oh, we're cutting your hair." Like, "Okay." And I had hair, about to my middle of my back. I had a braided goatee that months in FCW, and basically their desire was to completely wipe the slate clean and to start me anew on ECW that night. So I went from kind of having a mindset of what I was supposed to be and how I was supposed to present myself and everything like that, and all of a sudden it's like, cut your hair, shave your face, take the jacket off, and it's kind of a shocking moment, I think, for anybody. But again, it was an opportunity, and I was extremely happy for it. Don't get me wrong. It was one of those, you're going to cut my hair, cool. I'm still on TV tonight. Yep, okay, let's go. And so I basically did the best I could with the opportunity I had. And, initially it was pretty simple, just working with some of the local talent and just going out there and trying to be a beast and trying to find myself again. And ECW, I think, was a good product for any talent that was coming up, for the simple fact that even though ECW was kind of seen by the fan base as that third product and unfortunately a watered-down version of what the original ECW used to be, and so on and so forth, but for talents like myself, and if you think about, CM Punk started on their ECW product, Kofi Kingston's, Evan Bourne's, Sheamus's, the countless numbers of talents we could probably go through that started on their ECW product that have been mainstream main eventers for them and are still on their mainstream and main event. Kofi Kingston with the New Day right now and what they're doing, and Sheamus, who's the heavyweight champion right now, and everything that's going on, and those guys all started with ECW. So what ECW provided for guys like myself was an opportunity on a program that wasn't necessarily being intersected with Raw or SmackDown. It had its own storylines. You had your own hour. You had an opportunity to go out there and work on a weekly basis and try to establish yourself and build a character. And then, if things worked out and you could move on into SmackDown and into Raw. So it was a really awesome experience. Unfortunately, I think with ECW stopping and becoming what NXT was originally born as, great for the guys who got their opportunity to be a part of that first season with NXT. But, for guys like myself, who the last 3.5 months have been on their ECW product, now it's kind of a reboot again. We're taking off TV, and I was, on the road, but not on TV or doing really anything for about 3.5, 4 months. Until I, re-debuted with Curt Hawkins on SmackDown. So ECW, like I said, was a great place. It was just kind of a shock to the system because it went from one mindset to another within 5 minutes. And again, it came kind of out of nowhere. Like I said, I was just working FCW and all of a sudden got a phone call on a Saturday. So everything, within WWE can happen like that. From getting called up to being on TV to being released and going home the next day. You never know, because that's how the business works,
Everything you're saying is mirrors. I had a chance to speak to Matt Stryker earlier in the year, and I asked him something similar about ECW, and he said, you know what, it was an opportunity. People can voice and say that it was a watered down, but when you're fighting to get that opportunity and get noticed and get recognized, you can probably count maybe on one hand, if that, anyone would say, no, you know what, I won't take that opportunity. I'm going to pass it by. And no, you did it. You did exactly what you had to do.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
Wrestling in Japan and wrestling in North America is very different. At least I would think from a wrestler's standpoint. As a viewer, it definitely looks that way. You've had the opportunity to wrestle in North America and compete with both New Japan and All Japan. Between All Japan and New Japan, any similarities and differences, even though it is the same country, between the promotions?
That's a hard question to answer for the simple fact that, when I worked the one tour I worked for All Japan for was back in 2009. I'd done some more or less independent Japanese wrestling spots. There was a company called Big Time Vader that Vader was actually involved in, and before that it was called Makahen. And again, I would fly over to Japan and do 2 shows, maybe 3 shows, sometimes tops. And then 3 opportunity, actually had my conversation with TNA about my time ending with TNA while I was in Japan working on that All Japan tour back in 2009. That's an interesting note there. But Japanese wrestling has a true history and has been around for as long as professional wrestling pretty much has been around. Guys are getting inducted into the Hall of Fame from Inoki, and who knows who's going to come in the future with all that. Differences is between All Japan and New Japan. The thing that New Japan is doing now that I think really separates itself from what All Japan was in 2009, or even what All Japan is today, which unfortunately All Japan is barely even existing right now. New Japan has really taken on and adopted more of a Western style character development. It still has its very traditional, strong style professional wrestling. Some of the best wrestlers from top to bottom, every single guy that steps in the ring, because when they go into the dojos and they come up through the system as young boys, and they live it. It's not just I'm going to go to training today, or I'll go to training when I can. It's not just I'm going to train once or twice a week, and then I'll work shows when I can on the independent scenes, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of the route that most Americans have to go through, with the same that I did. But the Japanese, when they come into that dojo and they're young boys and they go through that whole system, it is a 7-day a week, 24 hours a day, living life in professional wrestling. And when they're training, they train. They do everything in the dormitories. They cook all the food. They clean all the clothes. They go and they'll wrestle. Once they get to that point where they're actually wrestling on the show, they'll wrestle their match, which is usually the first or second match tops, go and change and immediately go back out to the ring. So they're getting a bird's eye view, of professional wrestling and at the top level. And so as they come up, they're learning, like I said, on a 24-hour, 7-day a week basis, in the best places that they possibly could. So the professional wrestling itself is there and always will be. But what New Japan is doing now is really adopted those characters and those personalities that I don't necessarily think from top to bottom especially were prevalent in Japanese wrestling. And some of the biggest characters in Japanese wrestling history, from the Chonos and the Mudas and the guys like that, had extremely good characters. But those guys, if you think about it, did work in the Western side of the world a lot in comparison to just staying in Japan and just being a traditional strong style pro wrestler. And now guys like Tanahashi, Okada, Shinsuke Nakamura, Ishii, Honma, Toriano, I can go down the line and just keep naming the guys, to all the guys in the Bullet Club, they're all foreigners, all gaijin, but the influence and the influx of that, and that has changed their business to the point where now it is expanding and growing, and it's going beyond Japan more and more every day and all the time. So you asked the differences between All Japan back in 2009 to New Japan when I started in 2011 to New Japan what it is now. Everything has grown and changed in such good and extreme ways. Like I said, whereas I think it was more just straightforward pro wrestling, traditional strong style wrestling back in 2009, it's really changed and expanded. And what New Japan has done now is changing the game of Japanese wrestling. Right now our group, Suzuki-gun, and then Davey Boy Smith and I, our SKES, are working in Pro Wrestling Noah, and we're, I think, helping that company and changing its landscape and expanding its characters and taking the guys who already know how to wrestle and say, okay, you're good wrestlers, but now be a stronger personality so that people will care about you. And then when you go out there and perform as you do as a professional wrestler, they'll really love what you do as a fighter and as an entertainer. So it's ever changing and it's growing, and I think New Japan is truly becoming the next worldwide competitor, and if things keep growing and expanding, I think you're going to start seeing more and more of what they do on this side of the world in the United States and Canada, Mexico, because they have a strong relationship and influence with CMLL in Mexico, to everything they're doing in Japan, and they're expanding across the Asian nations. They go to Taiwan every year now. So what they're doing business-wise is amazing, and it's fun, and it's cool that I've been a part of it since, like I said, 2011 into what we're doing now, and hopefully more into the future.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at powerslam.tv.
What is something that you've enjoyed about being a tag team wrestler? Because when anyone starts off, they usually think to work on their own and cut their teeth on their own. But you've been part of a number of successful teams, championships galore. What is it about tag team wrestling that has appealed to you the most?
And the funny part about most of the teams that I've been a part of, it's kind of been just thrown together. I was a guy that was either working individually, and then they were like, okay, we're going to put you with this guy, another guy that may have been working individually, and they needed kind of a new group and a new team. And then I've luckily been able to kind of work with different talents at different levels and different personalities and all that stuff. And we've always been able to come together and create something fun, cool, and special. From my team with Kid Cash, to working with Ron the True Killings, to obviously Jimmy Rave, to working with Curt Hawkins in WWE, now working with Smith in Japan, the different elements and the different characters that they've all come from. It's just been kind of, I don't know why, but it's just always meshed well. And I've never seen myself necessarily as a tag team wrestler, but I've just always kind of fell into these fun, good tag teams. So I think what makes tag team wrestling special for me is I can be who I'm going to be and then my personality, and then somebody else can kind of take what they want to do and how their personality goes, and we create a good element. It's not just two guys being exactly the same. It's not two guys being so far distant that people just don't buy it as a team, but being able to come together as two personalities, but in a way that meshes and people dig seeing the team. I think that's kind of the funnest part is taking those different personalities and finding an element that's kind of similar, but enough that is different that people can be entertained by each personality and each person and each guy that's in the ring and how they fight and then how they fight together. That's what makes it fun, is just finding those mesh points and being able to make it something special and fun.
Awesome. You have mentioned a number of partners, but right now the most prominent being Harry Smith or Davey Boy Smith Jr.
Right.
The growth and maturation of Harry Smith has been evident, especially while working alongside you. What do you feel may have contributed to his overall growth and development in the ring? Because you see it happening as it's happening.
Right. I guess that would be a question better for him. I guess I would like to believe that I've just been somebody who's my wrestling, I think, has always been good. Some would argue that and whatnot, and that's fine. I don't care.
Fair enough.
But as I've grown in my ability to be a wrestler in the ring and my fighting styles, the one thing that I think that I've always been able to do one way or another, whether it was as a silly rock star or now in the Killer Elite Squad as the American Psycho and somebody who's just really scary every time I step in the ring, I think my ability to just be an over-the-top personality that people can believe in at that moment, I'd like to believe that what I'm doing as a personality, as a character, is very over-the-top. It's very extreme. It's very loud. It's very dangerous looking every time that I step in the ring and do what I do, and people can believe it. They don't go, that just doesn't, I don't feel that. I don't think anybody says that when they see me work, whether it's as an individual or in the team of KES. I'd like to believe the one thing that I've done for Harry, maybe residually, is just him being able to, because he's an amazing professional wrestler. I mean, he's born into the business. He's been doing it since he was a kid. He's, had his first match when he was a child at like 8 years old. His father's the British Bulldog. He's worked in the dungeon and he's worked in New Japan when he was 17 or 18 years old. And, he's worked in WWE. He's done everything around the business. And as a professional wrestler, when he steps in the ring, and the growth in that in Japan has grown as well because he's added such a shoot-style element to his offense. But the one thing, again, that I would like to believe that maybe I've helped him with, and again, more residually than just hands-on or anything like that, is just him seeing me just let loose and have fun and be this over-the-top crazy personality. And he's kind of taken that on himself. And he's like, oh, okay, I can be a fighter. I can be a shooter. I can be a professional professional wrestler, but then I can also have fun and be a character and go and scare the kids and yell at the people and be just overtly, when he flexes and when he does his gestures, I don't know what else to say here. He's developed those as we've been together as a team, and I'd like to believe he's just the one thing that I've been able to give to him, again, residually, is just him watching me be just crazy and go, oh, I can be crazy too, and in his own fashion, and then still be the amazing professional wrestler that he is. Being as young as he is, I've told him this personally. I believe that if he continues to develop both his personality and obviously his fighting skill in the ring, he could truly be, especially in Japan, but anywhere in the world, I think, a true heavyweight champion, a staple of a company, carry somebody's title and be a believable fighting personality that people want to see and they believe he can kick their butt. I truly believe that he could be a future of some company if they allowed him to be.
Now, being as successful between both yourself and Harry, and you did mention, you're hoping, well, not hoping, but you are helping Noah as well, helping that company and promotion grow. What do you feel that you two still have to achieve as a tag team that you haven't yet? Maybe not necessarily in Japan.
Well, that's the one thing we've always really tried to do, but, it's a difficult process in America just because he lives in Canada, I'm down in Texas, and trying to get us on the same schedule. He stays really busy up north and with the companies that he works with and he's been working with for years, and myself the same in the South with a lot of the companies that I've been working with. So a lot of times just getting us on the same page, and then for a company to be able to afford bringing us both in as a team has always been something that's been difficult, and we're definitely willing to work with different companies in efforts to try to get KES more North American or even European bookings or anything like that. What else is there left for us to accomplish? I just think to continue to be the dominant tag team that we've been into the future, whether that's continuing with Noah and GHC, going back to New Japan, the IWGP. There are other tag teams that we could easily capture in Japan and around the world. And I think that would like to be our legacy, if I said that correctly, is just being seen ultimately once this is over, once KES is done, once, maybe I've retired or whatever the case may be, that people look back and they go, Killer Elite Squad, KES, one of the most, if not the most dominant tag team in all of professional wrestling history. And that's a very bold statement, I think, to say, because there's been so many tremendous tag teams in the history of professional wrestling. I think tag team wrestling to some degree kind of got lost for a few years in the last 10 years or so. But I'd like people to see KES as probably one of the most dominant tag teams to ever exist in the business.
Now, it was, unless I missed this part, you have a degree in English?
Yes.
Okay. So now, after your career has ended, this is more prognostication. I guess you have a chance to say, what would I parlay my future after I've taken my last bump? What is it that what is it that Lance Hoyt can foresee himself do something? Would it be something still within the business? Would it be something completely outside of it?
Right.
So savvy, so seasoned. You've seen a lot. You've seen production. You've really been around it. What does the future hold?
Personally, I would love to stay in and around the business in some form or fashion. The one thing that I really enjoy doing, I've helped out a wrestling school in the past, but, fortunately I've been too busy to really be a part of any of that. But the one thing that I have enjoyed is when I go and work independent shows in the States, is being able to work with some of the younger talent that's trying to find themselves and learn a new skill, learn a new ability, and kind of taking the knowledge. Because I've had so many guys, the Arn Andersons, Fit Finleys, Terry Taylors, the Jerry Lynn's, the plethora of knowledge, the William Regals, the Dusty Rhodes, the list could just go on and on and on. And I apologize for anybody's name that I left off there, that have given me knowledge and have helped me grow and become who I am. Tommy Dreamer, who, is running House of Hardcore and has had me on several of his events now, has done nothing but tremendous things to help me and my growth in the business. And I guess the thing that I would like to do, if I'm given the opportunity to make a living within professional wrestling after I'm kind of out of the ring and not a character on the screen or in front of the crowd, is being able to help that next generation of talent kind of understand what I've learned and my experiences and take that into the future, because the business is ever changing. But I'd like to believe that I've kind of created my own element and niche that's both ability and knowledge, and taking a character and developing not only your wrestling skill but also your personality, and kind of combining all those things with kind of an old school psychology into a new school way of working, and pass that on into that next generation. I would love that opportunity to be that guy, or one of those guys that helps out that next generation. NXT has a lot of amazing coaches and people, Tenzai, or, when he was in Japan with me, Bernard, and he helped me out tremendously. Now he's the head guy at NXT, to be a part of that crew at some point in the future would be a lot of fun for me, I think, is to work with the young men and women that are at the Performance Center that are going to possibly be the next superstars for WWE into the future. Or if there's another organization that has anything of that same nature where they're working with the young talent into the future, or whether it's just on the independent scene, if people are willing to, again, that I can make a living and pay my bills and stuff like that. I'm not looking to be rich, but just enough so that I don't have to worry about the food on my table or the gas in my car. I would love to stay in the business and help that next generation. If all that can't come to be, and I'm never given that opportunity, I do have my English degree, like you said, so I think the opportunity to go back into teaching, in high schools or junior highs and stuff like that. I played football, and I still enjoy it. I watch it every Saturday and Sunday and Monday, and I still love the game of football. So if it came to be and I wasn't given an opportunity to stay in professional wrestling, even on the teaching capacity, I would probably go back into teaching English and possibly coaching football in high school, and who knows where else.
Now, as 2015 comes to an end, what does 2016 have in store for Lance Hoyt?
I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of open opportunities. We have a big title match with Big in USA, Chris Hero and Colt Cabana on December 23rd for Noah. There's been a lot of things that have been happening in Noah for the last year with Suzuki-gun and KES. There's every title that we've held, from the junior titles, which Noah captured back not too long ago, but a couple of our guys have a rematch for those titles, the junior tag titles. Tai Chi does have the junior title, and he's defending that. We're defending the tag team titles. Suzuki's defending the heavyweight title. If we have it the way we're going to have it, we're going to keep those titles. The junior tag titles will come back into Suzuki-gun, and we'll go on to 2016 as dominant as we've been all of 2015. But, who knows? It's professional wrestling. Things can change on a moment and a dime. So 2016, I hope it continues that path of domination for the Killer Elite Squad. I hope that new opportunities, whether they be in Noah, back into New Japan, or on into the States, there's a blooming relationship between Ring of Honor and New Japan right now. We've worked a couple matches with War Machine. We've had an awesome feud kind of going on back and forth, both in Ring of Honor and over in Japan at Noah with War Machine, who I think is one of the top tag teams in the business today. We kind of mirror each other in style and things of that nature, but definitely those guys are amazing in Ring of Honor. So I hope, because I think they have a tag title match coming up soon in Ring of Honor, that they capture those titles, and then we can go and take those titles from them in Ring of Honor. That would be another cool goal for KES. So hopefully in 2016 we just continue our domination of Japan, and we move more into the North American and the rest of the world, and show the rest of the world exactly what KES is all about and what I'm all about.
And last question, was there anything you'd like to share, encourage, and or promote as it pertains to Lance Hoyt, KES, Davey Boy Smith Jr., New Japan? The floor is yours.
Sure. The one thing that I've always tried to do with my time in professional wrestling and is staying positive. I see a lot of negativity online. I see a lot of negativity between other talents, guys being extremely critical of each other online. And a lot of times, we're all in this business together in some form or manner. We're all walking in, that mile in the same boots. We're all trying to be successful. We're all trying to make a name for ourselves. So I don't really understand why some guys and girls are extremely negative, especially publicly, about other talents, whether they know them or not. They're extremely negative about it, and I don't see how that perpetuates our business from the inside as talents. I think we should all do everything we can to be positive about ourselves and be positive about the other talents. And if you just have a bad opinion of someone, keep it to yourself. We're all going to have something negative to think about somebody at some time. And if somebody's having a personal conversation, that's one thing. But guys and girls seem to go on their social medias a lot these days and just bash each other and bash the business and bash what they're seeing on the products that are on TV. And I just don't see that as a positive for the future of the business. And I hope and I preach and I want is for all these guys and girls to just work hard, move forward, help everyone else move forward, help the business move forward by being positive about it. Now, I also say for the fans that are watching, I hear a lot of negativity on what they don't like, but I think that if they would focus more on what they do like and talk about the things that are entertaining to them and the things that they enjoy more so than the things that they're not happy with or they think are crap or I don't know how else to say it, just they're extremely negative about, I don't see how it stands. That helps the wrestling business grow into the future and give them something more and fun to watch, because the more negative they are about the business, and I think the more it hurts the business, it hinders the business, it sets it back, and it makes it harder for the business to move forward. And if you're a fan of professional wrestling, I would think and hope that you'd want it to move forward. So find something that you like and support, whether it's WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, PWG, PWF out in New York, BOW, Brandon Outlaw, our main event in the South down here, Wildcat Sports out in New Orleans. There's so many organizations, House of Hardcore, Tommy Dreamer, and everything he's done to produce some really fun and crazy cool product for the wrestling fans, and he's done it in just about everywhere. Up in Canada, he's done it in Philadelphia, he's done it in New York. There's possibility of him having a House of Hardcore in Australia at some point here in the near future. There's so many positive things that are going on, and I hope that both the fans and the wrestlers would focus on those positive and stop bringing up the negative and just help the business from every aspect move forward. And I say a lot of this on my social medias. People can follow me at Lance Hoyt on Twitter, Lance Hoyt on Facebook, which is it's open and it's public. Anybody can see what I'm putting out there. My Instagram is lhoyt77. Check out some of the pictures. Again, I try to keep all my stuff positive because I think there's too much negativity, and I think that needs to stop. The negativity needs to end. Let's all be positive for the business, both as fans and as workers.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. Once again, please visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. And be sure to download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer.